Mystic Falls always felt different at night, but tonight the difference was sharp enough to taste. Damon stood on the back porch of the Salvatore house, the old wooden boards groaning faintly beneath his boots. Fog drifted lazily over the yard, illuminated only by the warm porch light and the faint silver wash of the moon. He held a blood bag in his hand, letting the warm contents settle before taking a slow sip. He didn't drink from people anymore, not always anyway, but old habits lingered like ghosts. He wiped a trace of red from his lip as he glanced toward the tree line. The forest was too still. Even the wind seemed to hesitate before crossing that border. Something wrong? Stefan's voice drifted behind him, soft but edged with concern. Vamp hearing made everyone's footsteps predictable, yet Damon still sensed his brother's mood before he sensed his presence. Damon didn't turn. Define wrong, brother. The forest looks like it's waiting to jump out and yell boo, but maybe that's just me. Stefan stepped beside him, arms crossed, eyes scanning the woods. He'd fed earlier. Damon could tell by the slight flush in Stefan's cheeks, the steadiness in his posture. No veins beneath the eyes, no darkness hunting for release. Controlled, as always. Yes. You've been tense all day, Stefan said. And don't say you're never tense. Fine, Damon replied, taking another drink. I'm moderately tense, slightly tense. The tiniest bit annoyed. Happy? Stefan exhaled in a way that wasn't quite a sigh. Something's off. See, it's not just me, Damon muttered. Stefan didn't answer immediately. He tilted his head slightly, listening. Damon mirrored the movement. The night was quiet. Too quiet. No owls. No rustling. No heartbeat from any nearby deer. That's weird, Stefan said under his breath. The last time the woods had gone silent like this, something supernatural had breached a boundary. Damon set the blood bag on the railing, eyes narrowing. Before he could comment, a faint vibration flickered through the ground, so soft it might have been imagination. Stefan stiffened. Did you feel... Yes, Damon snapped. I felt it. They exchanged a brief, wordless look. Brothers didn't always need telepathy to communicate. Damon was about to take a step toward the woods when a familiar magical pulse brushed the edge of his senses. Bonnie appeared moments later from the side path, flashlight in hand, curls bouncing lightly as she jogged up the porch steps. She was breathing harder than usual, which meant she'd run the entire way. Even witches needed stamina for that. You guys felt that, right? She asked, not wasting a second. Stefan nodded. What was it? Bonnie didn't answer immediately. Instead, she extended her hand and closed her eyes. Damon watched as the faintest shimmer of magic flickered against her palm, barely visible, but enough to catch a vampire's eye. The porch light dimmed for a moment, as though the house recognized her power. It felt like a ripple, Bonnie finally said. Something pushed through. But it wasn't a spell, or a breach from the other side, it was something else. Damon leaned against the railing, arms folded. Great, super helpful, something else. That narrows it down to... what, 1,000 possibilities? Bonnie shot him a look, but he wasn't wrong. Mystic Falls had never lacked for supernatural chaos. I've never felt anything like it, she said, shaking her head. It wasn't aggressive, but it wasn't natural either. And... She paused. And? Stefan urged. Bonnie swallowed. It felt old, Damon froze. He didn't know why that word hit him so hard, but it did. Something in his chest tightened, a memory tugging at the corner of his mind, one he hadn't thought about in a long time. Stefan noticed. Damon? He forced a smirk. Relax. I'm just thinking of all the things in this town older than your haircut. But Stefan didn't laugh. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. Something's bothering you. Damon hated how perceptive his brother could be, especially about Damon's emotions. Nothing's bothering me. Yet. Damon, Stefan repeated. Before he had to answer, Elena pushed open the door behind them. Warm light spilled onto the porch as she stepped out, crossing her arms against the cold night air. She wore her daylight ring, blue jewel glinting softly, and a worried crease between her brows. I heard something, she said. What's going on? Magic earthquake, Damon said lightly. Bonnie says we're doomed. I did not say that, Bonnie muttered. Elena moved beside Stefan, her eyes shifting between the three of them. Is this connected to the energy surge earlier? I felt something at the house. Damon lifted a brow. You felt something? Elena nodded. Like a shift. It was faint, but it wasn't normal. Damon didn't like that. Elena was sensitive, sure, but she wasn't a witch. If even she felt something, the disturbance was strong. Bonnie closed her eyes again. It's getting closer. How close? Stefan asked. Bonnie exhaled. Close enough that I don't think the woods are safe tonight. Damon rolled his neck, vamp speed vibrating through his muscles instinctively. Fantastic. I was bored. Stefan gave him a look. This isn't funny. It's a little funny, Damon said. Danger knocks. Damon answers. It's tradition. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. Bonnie walked toward the edge of the porch, the wood creaking beneath her steps. She extended her hand again. Damon watched the faint glow build in her fingertips, illuminating her breath in the cold air. Then something shifted. A whisper of movement, fast. Too fast for humans, even for most vampires. Damon instinctively vamp sped to the yard, landing in a blur of motion. Stefan followed a heartbeat later. Bonnie jumped back, startled. Elena stepped behind Stefan automatically. Damon narrowed his eyes at the darkness. Show yourself! Silence. Then, a shape moved between the trees, not approaching, not hiding, just standing. Damon's enhanced vision caught only fragments. Tall. Still. Too calm. A vampire would have moved, a witch's energy would flare, a human would tremble. This figure didn't move at all, as if studying them. Bonnie whispered, It feels familiar. Damon's stomach dropped. That word again. Familiar. Old. He took a step forward. Stefan grabbed his arm. Damon, wait. But Damon wasn't listening. Something inside him, a memory buried deep, pulled at him like a hook. Stay here, Damon said. He'd vamp sped toward the figure. In a blink, the shape vanished. Damon skid to a stop in the trees, scanning the forest. Nothing. Not a heartbeat. Not a breath. But something cold brushed the back of his neck like the whisper of a ghost. Damon whipped around. No one. But the scent. Old blood, old earth lingered. He knew that scent. Or thought he did. He returned to the porch slowly. His expression unreadable. Well? Stefan asked. Damon stared into the trees, jaw tight. No one there. That's not true, Bonnie said softly. Someone was. Elena stepped forward. Damon, you look like you've seen a ghost. Damon didn't answer, because for the first time in over a century, that's exactly how he felt. He picked up the blood bag from the railing, but the scent suddenly turned sour in his mind. He tossed it aside. Stefan watched him carefully. Damon, talk to us. Damon clenched his jaw. He didn't want to. He didn't know how to. Finally, he breathed out, voice barely above a whisper. I think I know who it was. Bonnie swallowed. Who? Damon's eyes darkened. Not vampiric, but with memory. Mistake, he said quietly. One I made a long time ago. He turned toward the house, not meeting any of their eyes. And he shouldn't be alive. The Salvatore living room felt colder than usual. Damon paced slowly in front of the fireplace, the flames casting restless shadows across the walls. Stefan stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes locked on his brother with increasing concern. Bonnie sat on the edge of the couch, leaning forward, elbows on her knees, processing the energy she felt. Elena lingered near the doorway, watching Damon with a quiet intensity. He hated all of it. The eyes, the silence, the waiting. All right, Damon finally muttered, rubbing a hand across his jaw. Stop staring at me like I murdered someone. Again. Stefan didn't blink. Then talk. Damon exhaled sharply and walked toward the bourbon decanter. He poured himself a glass, ignoring the tremor in his hand. Stefan noticed, of course. Damon cursed internally. It was a long time ago, Damon began. Before the war, before everything. I was still figuring out what I was, how to control the hunger. I wasn't exactly my most responsible self. That sounds like every decade you've lived, Bonnie murmured. Damon shot her a glare, but there wasn't much venom behind it. Funny. Anyway, I met him in 1863. A stranger passing through town. A soldier, I think. Logan Pierce. Elena frowned. Pierce? As in, no, not that Pierce, Damon said. Different nightmare entirely. Stefan stepped closer. What happened? Damon swirled the bourbon in his glass. I had barely transitioned. I was feeding, recklessly. I didn't know how to stop. I don't even remember biting him. I was starving, losing control. The blood took over. Bonnie's brows pulled together. You turned him? I didn't mean to, Damon snapped, then lowered his voice. He was dying. And I did what I shouldn't have. I gave him my blood. And then what? Elena asked softly. Damon stared into the fireplace. He vanished. I never saw him again. I figured he died before he turned. I buried it. Moved on. Stefan pinched the bridge of his nose. Damn it, Damon! Damon threw his hand out. Save the lecture. I know what I did. Bonnie leaned back, her face tightening. If he survived the transition without a sire bond, without guidance, without understanding what he was, Damon, he would have become dangerous, or worse. Elena glanced between them. But why show up now, after more than a century? That, Damon said, draining his glass, is the part that's keeping me up tonight. A soft knock interrupted the tension. Caroline peeked into the doorway, blonde hair tied loosely, wearing a cardigan and jeans. So, I got Bonnie's text. Something's wrong and she said not to panic, which obviously means I'm panicking. What did I miss? Perfect timing, Damon muttered. Caroline stepped fully inside and scanned the room. Okay, why does everyone look like they just saw Catherine walk in again? Or worse, Klaus. Worse, Damon said. Someone from my past. Caroline blinked. That sort covers a very large and troubling range. Bonnie stood. It's complicated and supernatural. Caroline exhaled dramatically. Shocker. Stefan ignored the sarcasm. You need Rick. He might know something about the era, or the name. Damon nodded reluctantly. Fine. Field trip. But we're doing this quietly. Right, Stefan said, because Mystic Falls is known for its subtlety. As they moved toward the door, Bonnie glanced back at the porch. Her expression darkened. Bonnie? Elena asked. There's something else, Bonnie whispered. Something he left behind. They followed her onto the porch. The fog was thicker now, curling around their feet. Bonnie knelt. Her fingers skimmed a thin line in the dirt, almost invisible until she touched it. A burned mark, curved like a symbol, faint but pulsing with residual energy. Elena crouched. Is that a spell? No, Bonnie said. It's older. Much older. Terrific, Damon muttered. He's leaving messages. Stefan's jaw tightened. We should go. Now. The Mystic Grill was unusually empty for a Friday night. A few high school kids sat in a booth, and Matt stood behind the bar wiping glasses. He glanced up as the group walked in. Uh-oh, Matt said. Every time all of you show up together, something bad happens. Relax, Damon said, sliding onto a stool. We're just here for Rick. Matt gestured toward the back. He's in his little research cave. Told me to send any of you vampires straight back. Great, Damon said. We're getting predictable. They moved through the hallway leading to Rick's office, a cramped room filled with old books, maps, and hunter journals. Rick sat hunched over his desk, flipping through a stack of papers. Bad timing or perfect timing? He asked without looking up. Both, Stefan said. Rick finally glanced up. What happened? Damon leaned against a shelf. Someone from 1863 decided to rise from the dead, or whatever counts as rising for vampires. Rick raised a brow. Name? Logan Pierce. Rick's brows pulled together. Pierce. I do recall that name. He turned, rummaging through boxes until he pulled out a worn folder. He tossed it onto the desk. I found references to a vampire named Pierce turning up in the late 1800s, Rick said. There were rumours, sightings in southern states, attacks on villages, then sudden disappearances. No pattern. Bonnie stepped closer. Disappearances? As in he was hiding? As in something might have been hunting him, Rick corrected. Damon stiffened. Bonnie noticed the shift but continued. Do you have anything more recent? Rick shook his head. No sightings for decades. It's like he vanished off the map. Until now, Stefan murmured. Damon paced the small room. If he survived the transition alone, he would have fed uncontrollably, killed people, learned to survive, but that symbol he left. Bonnie said it wasn't witchcraft. It wasn't, Bonnie said. I don't know what it was. Rick leaned back. There were ancient vampire factions, not originals, but old clans. Some used marks to identify allegiance or territory. Meaning? Elena asked. Rick looked at Damon. Meaning whoever turned him might not be all Damon turned him into. Damon's jaw dropped slightly. He's my mistake. But not just yours, Rick said. Something else got to him. Something older. A chill swept through the room. This was bigger than a forgotten vampire. The air was colder here. Gravestones lined the hill, illuminated by moonlight and patches of fog. Damon stood aside, scanning shadows. Stefan was beside Bonnie, Elena, and Caroline behind them. Bonnie paused at a set of graves. There's energy here, something he touched. Caroline shivered. Seriously, why can't supernatural dangers ever leave cemeteries alone? Bonnie extended her hand. Magic flickered. Damon's eyes darkened, veins pulsing for a split second from the surge of power, an instinctive vampire reaction. He blinked it away. A gust of wind swept through the graves. Then a voice, calm, low, close. Still chasing ghosts, Damon? Damon froze. The others turned, but the voice wasn't behind them. It was everywhere and nowhere. Damon's fangs nearly clicked out, not from hunger, but from instinctive fear. He swallowed it back. Show yourself. Silence answered, then footsteps, slow, steady. From behind a mausoleum, a tall silhouette stepped forward, face obscured by shadow, posture composed, hands folded loosely at his sides. A long time has passed, the figure said, but you haven't changed. Damon felt something cold settle in his bones. He knew that voice. After a century and a half, he knew it. Logan? Damon whispered. The figure tilted his head. I prefer Pierce now. Logan died a long time ago. Bonnie's magic surged instinctively. Stefan stepped closer to Damon. Elena inhaled sharply. Caroline grabbed Bonnie's arm. Pierce smiled, calm, emotionless. I've been looking for you, Damon. The wind stopped, and the forest listened. The air around the cemetery tightened, like the night itself was holding its breath. Damon stepped forward before Stefan could stop him. His emotions were a storm, confusion, guilt, anger, disbelief, all clashing in his chest. Pierce remained still, hands loosely clasped behind his back as though he were visiting a museum instead of walking into the lives he once belonged to. The shadow over his face didn't shift even when the moonlight brightened. You're supposed to be dead, Damon finally said, voice harder than he intended. Pierce didn't flinch. You, of all people, should know death is a temporary inconvenience. Stefan stepped beside Damon. How did you survive the transition? Damon thought. Pierce interrupted gently. Damon assumed. His eyes, still hidden, seemed to move towards Stefan. Humans make assumptions. Vampires make mistakes. Damon bristled. You want to play cryptic? Fine, but you don't get to walk into town after a century and a half and talk like that. Pierce tilted his head, studying Damon. You haven't changed. You're louder, perhaps, but the core is the same. Caroline whispered to Elena, Okay, seriously, is anyone else getting original level creep vibes? Elena nodded tightly. Pierce took a single step forward. Stefan tensed instantly, fangs threatening to push through. Bonnie raised her hand, magic flickering, though her breath trembled with the pressure. Pierce stopped, amused. I'm not here to attack you. If I wanted to, you'd know. Pretty confident for someone who used to be human, Damon shot back. Something about the smile Pierce gave didn't feel remotely human. Used to be, he murmured. The evolution is complicated. Bonnie's eyes widened. What are you? Pierce turned his head slightly toward her. Still a vampire. Mostly, That word mostly settled like ice into the ground. Damon's fingers curled. He felt the familiar prickle of veins threatening to burst beneath his eyes. He forced them back. "What do you want?" Damon rasped. Pierce clasped his hands again thoughtfully. "I wanted to see you, after all this time." "You followed us to the cemetery for a reunion," Damon scoffed. "No," Pierce said. "I came here because this is where the boundary weakens, because something else is coming, something drawn to you the same way I was." The night chilled deeper. "Drawn to Damon?" Elena asked. Pierce finally looked directly at Damon. Damon felt the weight of that unseen gaze like a pressure on his chest. "You opened a door in 1863, Pierce said softly. "Not just for me." Bonnie's magic flared. "Damon didn't open anything, he turned you." "Yes," Pierce replied, "but I wasn't alone." Damon's breath hitched. "What are you talking about?" Pierce didn't answer. Instead, he moved with speed too fast, too sharp, even for a vampire. Damon Vamp sped forward, but Pierce vanished again, wind trailing in his wake. The group spun. He reappeared behind them, leaning casually against the mausoleum. The movement wasn't just vampire fast. It was wrong. And Damon's pulse spiked despite the fact that vampires didn't technically have anxious heartbeats. He stepped in front of Elena without thinking. Pierce noticed. "Protective now, are we? I remember a Damon who didn't care about anyone." "That Damon died a long time ago," Damon said. "Did he?" Pierce asked. "Oh." Suddenly Bonnie staggered. Her hand flew to her head. Stefan caught her. "What is it?" Stefan asked. Bonnie's breath shook. "There's something attached to him. It's ancient, older than witch lines, older than vampire lines." Pierce smiled politely. "She's perceptive. I like her." Damon Vamp sped so fast the air cracked, pinning Pierce against the mausoleum by the throat. Veins burst beneath Damon's eyes. Fangs bared, rage uncoiled. "What did you bring into my town?" Damon snarled. Pierce didn't react. His voice remained soft, steady, terrifyingly calm. "You shouldn't use your strength on me, Damon." "Oh?" Damon growled. "Why's that?" Pierce placed a hand over Damon's wrist. Damon felt something cold, seeping, burning. Not like magic, not like vampire compulsion. Something deadlier. His grip faltered. Pierce stepped away effortlessly. "I'm not your enemy," he said gently. "But I'm not your friend either." Damon shook out his hand, a sharp sting lingering in his bones. Stefan moved to his side instantly. "What did he do to you?" Stefan whispered. "I don't know," Damon muttered, unnerved. Pierce looked at them all. "There are things you don't understand yet. Things I had to learn the hard way. I survived because something found me. Something that feeds on power, on bloodlines, on mistakes." Bonnie shivered. "It's marked him." Pierce nodded slightly. "And soon, it will mark others." Elena stepped forward. "Why are you warning us?" Pierce turned his head toward her. "Because Damon is the one thing it wants most. What he did to me opened a door, and it doesn't close easily." Damon swallowed hard. "What door?" Pierce stepped back into the shadows, body fading almost unnaturally. "The door you opened when you killed me," and he vanished. The wind resumed. The forest breathed again. Damon stood frozen, fists trembling. Elena touched his arm. "Damon? Hey, look at me." He didn't. Stefan's voice softened. "Let's go back to the house. We can figure this out." Bonnie nodded, pale. "We need somewhere protected." Damon exhaled shakily. "The basement. It's fortified. We can regroup there." They left the cemetery quickly. Damon leading, Stefan close behind, Bonnie clutching her head as waves of strange energy lingered in her senses. The basement door creaked open, the familiar scent of stone and old timber grounding Damon slightly. The walls were lined with vervain-soaked planks and iron-barred cells, remnants of more violent years. Damon paced, restless. Stefan watched him, understanding but anxious. "You okay?" Stefan asked. "No," Damon said bluntly. "Does it look like I'm okay?" Bonnie ran her fingers along a pillar. Magic flickered faintly. There's no breach here. We're safe for now. Caroline sat on one of the benches, hugging her arms. He's wrong, right? This isn't Damon's fault. It can't be. Elena shook her head slowly. Damon didn't know. He didn't mean to turn him. Stefan added, and whatever happened after, Damon wasn't part of that. But Damon wasn't listening. His jaw clenched so tightly about a crack echoed in his teeth. Vampiric pressure. Eleanor, he said quietly, can you leave us for a second? Her heart stuttered at the tone, but she nodded, stepping aside with the others. Stefan approached him. Talk to me. Damon's voice broke slightly. I created him, Stefan. He shouldn't exist. And now he's something else. Something older. You didn't know, Stefan insisted. But I did it, Damon whispered. I opened the door. Bonnie moved closer. Whatever marked him, it's still attached. I felt it like a thread, like something ancient gnawing at him. But he wasn't lying. Damon looked up, plussly. About what? Bonnie held his gaze, her expression fragile but steady. It's coming for you. The lights flickered. Something scraped against the cellar wall. A whisper, low, ancient, non-human, echoed briefly. Elena rushed back inside. Did you hear that? Yes, they all heard that. Damon's expression hardened, fear dissolving into ice. Whatever's coming, Damon said. We're not waiting for it. Stefan nodded. Then what's the plan? Damon turned toward the stairs, eyes darkening. Not from vampirism, but resolve. We hunt Pierce, and we find out what he brought with him. The Salvatore basement felt suffocating, even with its fortified walls. Damon couldn't stand still. He paced in short, sharp motions, vamp speed flickering at the edges when his control thinned. Everyone watched him carefully, but no one dared interrupt. Finally, Stefan spoke. We need a plan before we go tearing into the woods blindly. Damon scoffed. Pierce isn't hiding. He's waiting. And that's exactly why we need a plan, Stefan repeated, voice steady but firm. Bonnie rubbed her temples, still feeling the echo of whatever had touched her senses in the cemetery. I should try again. I think I can track the energy thread connecting him to that thing. Caroline shook her head quickly. Bonnie, you almost passed out earlier. Bonnie lifted her chin. And that was me holding back. I need to push further. Elena stepped forward. We need to split up. We'll cover more ground. Her voice trembled slightly, but her determination didn't. Great, Damon muttered. Let's all divide and get murdered one by one. Brilliant plan. Damon, Stefan said softly. Damon clenched his jaw. He hated how easily Stefan could cut through his anger. Rick descended the basement stairs just then, holding an old grimoire and a stack of loose documents. I might have something, he said, breathless from rushing. The group turned toward him. I dug through old hunter records, Rick continued, spreading papers across a table. There were sightings of creatures, beings that fed on vampires, not physically, energetically. Bonnie stiffened. Feed? How? They attach themselves, Rick said, like a parasite. They drain the vampire's power, emotions, and identity, slowly over decades. Caroline stepped back, horror creeping across her face. Pierce said he wasn't entirely vampire anymore. Because whatever attached to him, Rick said gravely, finished the job. Damon felt a cold ripple run up his spine. What do these things want? Rick hesitated. Some legends call them shadows, shadows of an older age. They can't survive without a host. And why me? Damon asked, his tone quieter now. Rick looked at him over steepled fingers. Because you created the host they've been using. Silence swelled. Damon's throat tightened. So this is my punishment. Elena stepped beside him. No, it's not punishment. Damon didn't respond. Bonnie straightened. We need to move. Pierce won't stay hidden forever. And if a shade is attached to him, then every minute we wait it gets stronger. Stefan nodded. We split up, but stay in pairs. Damon with me, Bonnie with Caroline, Elena with Rick. Damon frowned. And what, we meet up later to compare body counts? Stefan didn't rise to the sarcasm. We need you to stay focused. Damon's glare softened, just barely. After a moment, he nodded. Fine. The woods swallowed them quickly, branches overhead forming dark arches. Damon moved ahead, senses flaring. Every sound, every shift of air hit sharper than usual, his nerves on edge. You're quieter than usual, Stefan said, keeping pace beside him. Thinking. That's new, Damon shot him a look. Ha! Funny. Stefan lowered his voice. Damon, what Pierce said. You didn't open a door, not knowingly. That doesn't matter, Damon muttered. It's still opened. Stefan slowed his breathing. You're not the monster he's making you out to be. Damon laughed bitterly. Maybe I was, maybe I still am. Stefan stopped abruptly, forcing Damon to face him. Listen to me. Whatever happened in 1863, who you were then, that's not who you are now, and we will fix this together. Damon looked away, jaw flexing. A rustling sound cut through the woods. Stefan tensed. You hear that? Damon nodded. Left side. Too light for a vampire. Too slow. They moved toward the noise cautiously. A figure stumbled into view. Matt Donovan. Matt! Blood smeared his sleeve, breath shaking. Matt! Stefan rushed forward. What are you doing out here? Matt swallowed, eyes wide. I saw something at the grill, something wrong. Damon moved closer. Define wrong. Matt pointed behind him. A guy. Tall. Quiet. He was just standing there. No expression. Nothing. Then he disappeared. Stefan exchanged a look with Damon. Pierce, Matt added. And when he vanished, the room got cold, like freezing. Damon stepped forward. Did he touch you? Matt shook his head. No, but something did. He lifted his arm slightly. Dark marks, faint but unnatural, ran along his skin like ink veins. Stefan cursed under his breath. Damon grabbed Matt's wrist gently, examining the marks. They pulsed faintly beneath his fingers. What the hell is this? Matt whispered. It's a shade, Damon said quietly. A parasite. Matt's eyes widened. It touched me. Am I gonna turn into... No, Damon snapped. You're not turning into anything, but you're not walking back to town alone. Stefan nodded. We need to get him to Bonnie. Damon turned. Go, take him back. I'll keep tracking Pierce. Stefan hesitated. Damon? Stefan? Damon's voice firmed. He needs help. I can handle this. Stefan studied him for a moment, then nodded. Be careful. He took Matt's arm and sped away through the woods. Damon watched them disappear, then inhaled slowly, letting vampire senses expand outward. Wind, leaves, old wood. And then a voice behind him. Still running toward danger, Damon? Damon spun. Pierce stood 10 feet away, leaning against a tree, posture loose. Expression unreadable. The shadows around him seemed unnaturally deep. Glad you stuck around, Damon said. I was worried I scared you off. Pierce smiled softly. You couldn't scare me then. You can't scare me now, as Damon Vamp sped forward. Pierce didn't move. His calmness was more unsettling than violence. Damon grabbed him by the jacket, slamming him against a tree. Tell me what you brought into my town, Pierce tilted his head. You already know. The shade of a second voice, whispering ancient, flickers through Damon's mind. He recoiled, clutching his skull. Get out of my head! Pierce stepped forward as Damon staggered. You feel it now, don't you? Pierce murmured. The same way I did. The moment I turned. Damon's vision blurred, shadows curling at the edges. Pierce touched Damon's shoulder lightly, and Damon felt it, the cold, the hunger, the presence. Pierce whispered, It's already looking at you. Damon shoved him away, fangs out, veins bursting beneath his eyes, but Pierce only smiled and vanished. Bonnie gasped, clutching her chest, and Caroline grabbed her shoulders. Bonnie, what happened? Bonnie's voice trembled. Damon, she whispered. Something touched him. The woods swallowed Damon's vision in a whirl of darkness. The ground tilted beneath him as if the forest floor itself were shifting. His fangs receded slowly, unwillingly, like some unseen force was holding them back. His breath shook. Vampires didn't breathe from fear, yet the instinct rose anyway. Something was inside his head. It whispered without language, a vibration more than a voice, a hunger more than a message. Mine. Damon staggered, catching himself against a tree trunk. His veins flickered beneath his eyes. "No," he growled. "Get out!" The whisper thickened. "You open the door. You belong to us." Damon forced his senses outward, anchoring himself with the forest sounds. Wind, trees, soil. Then, a flash of movement to his right. Damon vamp sped, dodging instinctively as a blur of shadow ripped through the air where his head had been. The force split the bark of the tree behind him. He landed low, hands curled like claws, senses straining. What the hell? A figure materialized, not Pierce, but a shape of shifting blackness outlined like dried ink against moonlight. No eyes, no mouth, no features, just an absence where a body should be. The shade. It flickered like a glitch in reality. Damon hissed, "Come on then." It lunged. Damon disappeared in a blur, reappearing behind it. But his punch passed through air that felt solid and cold, like hitting smoke filled with ice shards. A stinging burn shot up his arm. "Great," he muttered. Intangible and annoying. The shade lashed outward. Damon dodged one swipe, but the second caught him across the ribs. Heat exploded through his torso, then cold. Too cold. His knees buckled. This wasn't physical pain, it was drain. He felt weaker, stuerer, like the thing was feeding on him. Damon snarled and pushed himself upright. "You want me? Come and get me." He launched forward, vamp speed, cracking the air. He hit it with full force and went straight through. The impact slammed him into a tree trunk so hard it splintered. Damon slid down, breath leaving his lungs in a harsh gasp. The shade hovered, edges vibrating, drawn to him like gravity. Then, a blast of light tore through the trees. "Get away from him, Bonnie." She burst into view, Caroline trailing behind her. Bonnie's hands glowed with searing gold and deep violet, ancestral magic and Bennett power woven together, sparking off her skin. Caroline vamp sped to Damon's side instantly, helping him stand. "Damon? Hey, are you okay?" Caroline asked, panic bleeding into her voice. Damon shook his head weakly. "You shouldn't be here." "Too late," Caroline said. "We're already here." Bonnie stepped forward, palms outward. The shade rippled, hissing without sound. "I can't hold it long," Bonnie warned. "It's stronger than anything I've felt." "Then don't hold it," Damon gasped. "Kill it." Bonnie ignored that. "Caroline, get him out of range." Caroline hoisted Damon's arm over her shoulder and vamp sped him back several meters. Damon coughed, gripping his ribs as his healing struggled to catch up. The shade surged toward Bonnie. Bonnie's eyes snapped open, glowing faint gold. "Not today!" She slammed her hands forward. A wave of magic shot out, bending the air. The shade reeled backward, its form distorting like some under pressure. The ground cracked beneath Bonnie's feet, but the shade didn't break. Instead it split, two shadows separating like shards of darkness. Caroline whispered, "That's cheating." The two shades shot toward them. Bonnie shouted, Move! They split!" Caroline vamp sped left, dragging Damon. Bonnie rolled right, magic flaring in a tight sphere around her. A shade swiped at Caroline. She ducked under it and leapt upward, grabbing a branch and flipping behind the creature. But even at vampire speed, the thing moved just as fast. It turned mid-air, swiping again. Damon shoved Caroline out of the way, taking the hit himself. His back arched as the shade's energy burned through his veins. His daylight ring flickered. "Damon!" Caroline screamed. He fell to one knee, hands trembling. Bonnie blasted the shade off him with another surge of power, her voice cracking with effort. "We can't beat it like this." "Then we change the rules," Damon growled, pushing himself upright. A new voice echoed through the woods. "No, you weaken it first." Stefan and Rick emerged, Matt leaning weakly against a tree behind them. Rick held an old iron spearhead, glowing faintly with runes. "Pierce was restrained once," Rick said breathlessly. "Hunters use these. Iron forged with witch blood." Damon's eyes sharpened. "And you didn't mention this earlier because—" "I only just found it," Rick snapped. The two shades converged, merging back into one massive shape. Stefan Vamp sped next to Damon, steadying him. "Ready?" "No," Damon said. "Let's go anyway." The shade lunged. Bonnie dropped to her knees, hands pressed into the earth as she channeled deeper. The ground around her glowed faintly, ancestral energy rippling in patterns. "Stefan!" she yelled. "Drive it toward the sigil." Stefan flashed forward, becoming a blur. He struck the shade with a combination of vamp speed kicks and bursts of force, redirecting it. Even when his blows passed through, the shade reacted to the kinetic energy. Caroline joined him, her movements sharper, faster, distracting, darting, pushing it closer. Damon forced himself upright. "My turn." He vamp sped directly behind the shade and shoved it forward with everything he had left. The shade staggered, right into Bonnie's glowing trap. Magic surged upward, engulfing the shadow. It shrieked silently, form distorting violently. "Now!" Bonnie cried. Rick hurled the iron spearhead. Stefan caught it midair and slammed it into the center of the shade's chest. For a moment, pure deafening stillness. Then the shade exploded in a burst of dark vapor. Damon stumbled back, chest heaving. Caroline caught him again. "Is it dead?" Matt asked weakly. No one answered yet. Bonnie stood shakily, breathing hard, magic dimming around her fingers. "I weakened it. I didn't destroy it. It's tied to Pierce." Damon spat blood to the side. "Then we hunt Pierce." Stefan helped him upright. Damon didn't push him away this time. Rick stepped closer. "There's something else." Everyone turned. Rick held up another page from the Hunter records. "This shade," Rick said, "was only the beginning. It's a scout, a fragment. The real entity is still on the other side of the breach." Damon's voice dropped. "And Pierce?" Rick swallowed. "Pierce is the door, the anchor, and he's guiding it." A soft, cold voice drifted through the clearing. "Not guiding." Everyone froze. Damon stiffened. "Inviting," the voice whispered. Pierce stood at the edge of the woods, calm as moonlight, hands folded behind his back, eyes glowing faintly with an unholy shimmer. "I told you, Damon," he said softly. He opened the door. Behind him, the shadows writhed, growing, deepening, alive. Damon's heart sank, and Pierce smiled.